This is the Business Owners IT Podcast with Anthony Garish and Ryan Carter, where tomorrow's technology meets today's conversations.
Hi, I'm Tony Garish.
And I'm Ryan Carter, and this is the Business Owners IT Podcast.
A podcast where we discuss tips, tricks, and solutions for business owners involving all things tech.
All right, let's dive right. Wait, let's continue. Nope. I think we're going to take a small break here from the CIS framework to give you guys something a little bit important that Tony and I and actually John have been talking about recently. So Tony, why don't you go ahead and take it away and show us what we got?
Yeah, so here's what we're going to do today. So I came up with a list of 10 questions that any business owner should ask their IT service provider. And what's going to happen here is that Ryan's going to ask me the questions, and I'm going to answer them, and then probably tell you. I'm going to answer them, and then we'll probably get into discussion of a little bit deeper into each one of them. So I have the list in front of my hands, but I don't need it. I'm going to hand it over to Ryan. He's going to ask me the question, and I'm going to answer it.
Sounds good. So before we get started, these are 10 questions you ask your IT service provider, but could I ask someone else these questions?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you could ask you could turn these questions and ask anybody that you do work with that might have personable identifiable information or vendor information. You can certainly ask these questions to them as well. It's not just your IT service provider. But in this case, we're going to discuss IT service provider.
Yep, and I'm just going to, a quick list would be like my bank.
Absolutely.
Maybe my healthcare professional, just anyone that deals with something of my personal information, even the accountant, how they store their stuff. So we'll get in these questions, and you guys can kind of get a feel on how to what you can ask. So the first question we have is, so I'm the business owner asking the IT provider that maybe he's proposing me for some work or something along those lines. So Tony, can your software management tools be accessed from any computer attached to the internet?
So no, at Unique Computing Solutions, they can't. We can only get to our tools on the web, any portals from computers that are owned and compliant compliant to Unique Computing Solutions standards. So what does that mean? That means that a tech can't go home, get on their home computer, and get into any of our software. It has to be on our computer, and it's controlled through M365, Microsoft 365, and the hardware itself. And so that's the question. And the hardware also has to be compliant. So if for some reason a tech removes some of our security software or some of our controls that are in place, it'll become non-compliant and they won't be able to get in.
Yeah, so for any, IT business or business owner out there, a managed service provider like ourselves, we have a suite of tools that we use that we're going to install on your computers for cybersecurity, for us to remotely monitor and manage that stuff. And what this question is really narrowing down is, and what Tony, stated is that we can only use those tools, like our remote monitoring management tools, from computers we own and computers that we trust. So you couldn't, or someone else across the United States couldn't just get on a computer and sign into our portal and then get to your stuff. So that's how we're stating that it's secure. And that's kind of like the answer that you need to look for when you're asking someone these questions is how they're getting into your stuff and where can they get into your stuff from. So, I think that kind of helps answer that one.
Sure.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is get in the second question. As a business owner, I'm going to ask you, so how do you protect my workstations and servers and my backups from the software tools you use to manage our hardware?
Okay, so that's a good question. So how do we protect it? So there's a couple things that we do. One thing is we use ThreatLocker. So that's the key one, right? So ThreatLocker is application whitelisting. So let's say that you did bypass and somehow you got into our remote monitoring and management, right? And you were nefarious and you were going to create some power scripts and use our RMM to run those power scripts on, our customers' computers, right? So first of all, they won't run because they have to be whitelisted. So it'll be blocked by ThreatLocker. So ThreatLocker allows everything that you need and denies everything else. So we learn all your software that you need, we tweak it, we future-proof it, and then that's it. So now if Ryan says, okay, I want to create a script, but I want to do some work, and he creates the script, right? And he uploads it into the RMM, and he tries to run it on any workstation or server, it's not going to execute unless Ryan took the time to go through and allow that, right? Now, let's say somebody's really smart. Okay, they allowed this thing, right, to go through, and I see this. Well, I'm going to change it a little bit. Nope. The minute they change it, it's going to have a new hash, and it's not going to be able to run. So it's not being done in a sense, I'm just allowing this program to run. No, we're looking at the hash, in some cases, the security certificate, the path, the name, all of that. So that's how you can stop it.
So you, as an IT provider, and I'm asking as the business owner, so, does all of your people have the ability to whitelist these applications?
No, so we don't. Not everybody does have the ability to do this. So if you're Threat Locker certified, right? If the tech is Threat Locker certified, which we have a couple of them, or of course Ryan and I too, but if they're Threat Locker certified, then they're usually the ones that are making the changes. Now, some of them have the Threat Locker training, right? But they are not allowed to make any changes without contacting the cybersecurity heroes and having the cybersecurity heroes help walk them through that.
Okay. What about my backups? How are those protected?
Well, again, so your backups, right? They have to be immutable, right? So that's another, I guess, number 2 could be a twofold question. I might even have it down further, but they have to be immutable. They have to be not contactable from inside of the network. So if I get into your computer or I get onto your network somehow, I cannot be able to get to your backup. Because if I can get to your backup, if you guys are the old ones that got the USB drives or backing it up normal, to some kind of drive, if I can get to that, I can encrypt it, I can delete it, I can do all kinds of damage. So it has to be immutable, and it should be on site and in the cloud.
Okay. I love it. So, what could happen to my data as a business owner if I had a rogue employee, or, if one of my employees let a criminal in and they gained access to our management, to your management? I'm sorry. What could happen to our data if a rogue employee of yours or a criminal gained access to your management tools?
Yeah. So what could happen? First of all, they could steal all your data. Second of all, once they stole all your data and you had it, they can run programs and scripts to encrypt all your data, right? And then they can use what they stole from you to extort you. That's what can happen, right? And you can have hours of downtime and hours of a business loss. So you need tools to stop that, right? I mean, yes, I trust all my employees. I don't think any of them would ever do that. But hey, if Elon Musk came along and offered them $500,000 to do it, they might do it. So you got to have the other stuff in place to do it.
To stop them, which takes you back to that first question of how our software management tools are accessed.
Right.
So that we can see that and everything's, logged, all of the good things there that can keep that from happening. But you know what? This is a really good one. If everything went kaput, how long would it take to recover my computers and servers from an attack?
Yeah. I mean, that's a very long time, a very long time is the answer, right? So, but if you have business continuity, right, and you have, and you have things in place, you might be able to recover your servers very quickly, right? But each individual workstation, chances are you're going to have to reimage them.
Yeah, and a part of that continuity too is following some of these frameworks like we've been talking about, like the CIS that we're taking a small break from. But you follow those, you're going to know what the important computers and important servers are to get up right away, and you can also test those backups so we could know how fast they go. And that's something we do provide to our business owners is the opportunity to test your backups to see if things went kaput, how long it would take for you to get back up and running.
Yep, and many of the bigger customers, right, that have a lot of computer base, right. 60, 100 computers, we're actually backing up some of those key computers too. And like you said, if you test it, then you know if it works. So, you have the ability these days to have business continuity where your servers will run into cloud. And, the amount of time that it takes to restore is a key factor. And you want to know how fast. Any business owner should know how fast they can restore their servers or their whatever it is they have.
All right. So, Tony, I'm that business owner. I don't want any of your security stuff on my stuff. I want it on my people's, okay? And unfortunately, I'm one of those guys that clicks everything that comes through on my email. So I just clicked something and we got attacked, and my computer is now compromised. what kind of tools or software is used to stop that, to isolate that?
Yeah. So there's a good question, right? So now all of a sudden here's a situation where they got by everything, right? And beat a bomb, beat a boom. They released some malware. They didn't have threat locker or whatever, right? So, you know, you should have endpoint detection and response, right, on your computer. And what that means is that you have a security operations center that's kind of watching your computers and everything. And when they see something like this happen, right, they can isolate that host. They can lock it down. And, so we do have cases where, business owners don't want to use threat locker. They don't want to follow our thing, but they still use the endpoint detection and response. This way it kicks them out, locks them up. Same thing if you have, if it happens in your email, there's also, a managed detection and response for Microsoft 365 and Gmail.
Okay, that's a good answer, and that's something we should look for from all of our service providers. Just so you guys know, this episode will probably go a little bit longer than normal. We're about halfway through some of these questions, but they are good ones to know, so sit back and relax and ride with us here. So I'm a business owner, and Tony's proposing to me again on his services. And I just happened to go and start reading on the internet about managed service providers. And all of a sudden I read something about an attack that came from a managed service provider, but it was from their tools. And it didn't just attack one client, it attacked all of their clients. So what happens if an attack comes from your tools and executes on all of your customers' computers and servers simultaneously? What happens?
Well, basically, your service provider has a whole bunch of computers to restore and get back up online, right? So, if a service provider's tools are compromised, and it has happened, and we continuously are an attack vector, you're going to be down. That's going to run so fast, and it's going to propagate so quickly that before even the first client notices, hundreds of or even thousands of computers are going to be affected, right? So, it's called, in the one case, this was a supply chain hack. So they actually got into security, into the vendor's tools and pushed out some bad code. Again, malware is just bad. It's just software, right? So it's going to create havoc, and it's going to create days of recovery, and depending on how big the service provider is, right? If you're a small company, you're probably going to be last to be recovered. If you're the bigger companies or the ones spending more money with the MSP, with the louder voice, they're going to be recovered first.
Yeah, and as a business owner, I need to look for the answer from that service provider or whomever I'm talking to about this, about what they have in place to stop that, or expertise they have in place for if something does happen that way, along those lines.
Exactly.
So a great question to ask, to see what they say about how it is and also how they're going to protect you along the way. We talked a little bit earlier about backups, but, you said the word immutable. Are my server and workstation backups immutable when I go with your company, Tony?
Well, yeah, because we're using Datto. So Datto has an on-premise backup, and it has a cloud backup, and it has business continuity. So yes, it is. The on-premise backup is not accessible from the network. The backup is then the daily backups, and we're probably most of our customers backing up every half hour, right? So we're going to have every half hour backup on the Datto device itself, and then we're replicating to the cloud every night, and then every day we get verifications that our backup is good. One thing about this backup, if we did get encrypted in the backup, in the encrypted backup should not be backed up, because Datto's smart enough to know that there's ransomware on there, and they'll stop it from being backed up, or at least notify us. But since we're backing up so often, we should be able to restore rapidly once we identify how the encryption or the ransomware got in.
Understood. Great. So, now that we're on the subject of backups, which I don't think I need this, it's in your quote, I don't know why, but why do I need to back up my Microsoft 365 tenant?
Yeah, so Microsoft 365, they don't, Microsoft and Gmail, they don't back up individual mailboxes and drives, right? They they back up the whole data center. So if you want your data to be protected, you need to back up, do a SaaS backup of either Gmail or Microsoft 365. So, I mean, there is some retention there, but it's not long enough. And again, if something happens at Gmail there is actually an instance where Gmail has lost all somebody's clients all their data, and you can search it on the internet. I don't know the exact thing where it happened, but they lost everything. Luckily, they had a backup and they were able to restore. But again, if the data center's lost, right, the data center gets wiped out. Gmail and Microsoft or Google and Microsoft, they'll restore the whole. They'll bring you up on another data center, but they're not going to help you with individual files. They're not going to help you with individual files that are deleted by people. Let's say, or emails that are deleted by people that go back 6-7 months.
Yeah, and putting my consultant hat back on is that they don't guarantee you. It's in the terms and conditions. They don't guarantee your data. They guarantee that their service will work, but they don't guarantee that data. So another thing too is, like, if I were a business owner and I have a spreadsheet that in OneDrive that I use maybe once a month to fill out some new client information, and I deleted it and went over 30 days, for sure it's out of their trash can. Now I'm going to have to, if I don't have backups, I can't get that file, and I just lost all this important data that I wanted. So, then I could call Tony's company and be like, hey, I deleted this 45 days ago. Can you help me out here? Yes, of course. And boom, they find it in the backup and restore it. And that's why you have those backups and immutable backups, Another thing I would like to ask, since we're talking about 365 or Google is, as my service provider, can you detect any anomalies in my 365 tenant or Google Workspace? Like if someone got in as me?
Sure. So that's called managed detection and response, right? And we can do it both in Gmail and inside of Microsoft 365 or inside of Google, whatever you want to call it. And basically what happens is, again, there's a security operations center. They're collecting the logs that are happening in 365 and in Google. And when they see these anomalies, they're able to isolate that user. Basically what they do is lock the user, disable the two-factor authentication, and basically notify us. They basically kick them out, revoke all the sessions, right? And the things that we're going to be looking for is impossible travel. How can Ryan be sitting here, but he's also now getting in Texas, or he's now getting in the Ukraine or China, right? That's one. We're going to look for rules, right? They're going to put rules in there. They're going to forward all your emails that come in, right? That forward to a Gmail account or something like that. They're going to potentially, I talked about the impossible travel, but also through a VPN, right? So we can have conditional access where we only allow people to get in from the United States, right? But these hackers are smarter than you think, right? They're into Ukraine, but they're using a VPN to go through Texas, so it looks like it's coming from Texas. So them are the three biggest ones that you'll see. Sometimes you'll see just a login, right, that's suspicious, and then they'll watch it, because once they get in, they may not attack you right away. They might wait 30, 90 days before they actually attack you, or 100 days. As they look around, you might not notice, right? So sometimes these anomalies where just a quick login doesn't make sense. You really got to look at it.
Yeah, some of those attackers, they don't have any impulse control and try to work right away, and the other ones are the smart ones. They'll sit around and wait for a little while.
Absolutely.
For that perfect time to attack. And our last question, which was for question 10, Tony, you actually, you're so forward thinking, you already kind of answered that question, which is what can you detect in your cloud services? And what actions can you take? Is it 24/7 or is it only during business hours?
Yeah, it's 24 hours, 7 days a week. Typically, we're not a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week shop, but we have a security operations center that does this for us. It's Huntress, right? So Huntress is a good tool. What they're going to do if somebody gets in there, they're going to isolate it for us. They're going to email us. They're going to text us. They're going to call us. I'm not going to say I'm going to get up right at that time at the middle of the night when they do this and do anything, because I know they've already taken care of it. When we get in the morning, then we try to sort it out, because 99% of the time, the person that's attacked doesn't even know they were attacked.
Yeah. Yep. And, that takes us through our 10. And, there are some key takeaways from this that you can summarize it a little bit for what you want to ask your service provider is the first thing is how am I protected, my stuff? And then how is my stuff also protected from your stuff, since you have so much access into what I have? And then the last piece is okay, if something happens, what next? Do you guys is there a plan in place, or am I just kind of, SOL? I just don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, we're doing a podcast about the CIS controls, and we're trying to get customers to align with the CIS controls, which gives us, it's like, it's a matter of when, it happens. It's going to happen sometime. One of our customers are going to be not necessarily compromised by our tools, right? But they're going to have some type of compromise. And are they prepared to try to do the restore?
Well, Tony, I just want to take the time to thank you for going through these 10 questions with us and letting me just grill you real good there. I'm sure you're feeling kind of beat up today and all that good
Yes,
stuff.
sure.
But again, thank you for taking the time to go through that and present these questions to us, because I think it's important and something you'll probably hear a lot more from us. So if you want to take us away.
Yeah. So, I mean, in these 10 questions that we asked you, I think the first one is the most important, right? Is, how is your service provider, how is anybody you're using protecting your data against the tools that they use? That's important, very important. So to wrap it up, what I like to say is thanks everybody for tuning in to the Business Owner IP. Wow. To wrap it up, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning into the Business Owners IT podcast. See you next week.
We'll see you next week where we work on some more CIS controls.
You have to piece it together. You get it?
Unique computing solutions. Your IT challenges solved.